Welcome back to The Big Picture, my conversation with Drew Cerza, the Wing King. Well, if you back up from where the restaurants are, you go to a restaurant, the food is delivered to the table. Well, the restaurant gets the food from a distributor, and the distributor gets the food from a main warehouse, and main warehouse gets the food from the farmer or the meat packing plant or whatever. The food chain has got to be affected as well. How has that come into play with the current situation? And is that drying up, or are prices going down because of the demand going down? How does that affect everything?
It won't affect the restaurants as much because restaurants, one thing about them is they're kind of flexible with their menu based upon seasonality and what's available. You bring up a great point. I think everybody now knows what supply chain really means. I mean, a story just came out yesterday, Tyson Foods. I mean, they had to close some of their main plants because the coronavirus internally with their staff. Well, guess what that means? The farmers that have all these pigs and all these cattle that are ready to get slaughtered, they can slaughter them, but now there's no processing plant to get them to the next phase. So what are they going to do with all the cattle? And everything is backed up. You saw that the dairy farmers, they have all this milk, but there's no way to get them to these supermarkets. And now they're trying to do something with the food banks, but it's just everything in life has been disrupted. It's like a domino effect,
Yeah.
and we see how everything's contingent. Look at China. Like, there's a lot of things that people need for manufacturing to get parts that are made in China, and now these Chinese plants are shut down. So that's affected. Everything's affected.
Well, it's kind of like a bizarro world when you think, in oil, we heard about oil going to negative cost. I mean, people couldn't quite understand how a barrel of oil could cost a negative $20 or $30. And I had to explain it just to my family, my kids, that, they don't want to shut the production down because it costs money to restart it. And nobody knows how long this is going to go. So if it's only going to be temporary, it's more efficient to keep production going, rather than to stop and then start again. So they keep on producing, but as they're producing, they've got nowhere to put it. And if they've got nowhere to put it, they've got to look for people who can accept it, who have the facilities to store it. And as that runs low, then people don't want it, and they have to pay people to actually take the oil that's being produced. I'm assuming that same dynamic is true with farmers producing milk and growing corn and all the other things that are in the supply chain.
I don't know if you remember the Seinfeld episode when Kramer and Newman had this plan to get the 5-cent bottle returns and drive them to Michigan to make 10 cents in Michigan on a holiday weekend with a mail truck. So, of course, I had to look into this, part of Kramerica's empire. The thing with oil, I guess all the oil from the U.S. gets shipped to someplace in Oklahoma or Kansas. All the barrels, you got to buy a minimum of 1,000 barrels filled. So I can get one on my pickup truck. If we could buy 999 more pickup trucks, we would be convoy. We can find our own storage space. Speaking of storage with airplanes, do you know there's a real problem with airplanes right now? They're getting stored in the desert because there's no place to keep them.
Yeah,
they're not in the air.
Talk about upside down. I mean, everything is just. Who would have thought 2 months ago that we would be sitting here talking about this in this way? I mean, it's just you just never know. I mean, it just goes to show you that you can't count on anything in this world. I mean, anything can happen, really.
No, Phil, in all reality, there was before this, everybody said the economy was good. The economy wasn't good. Wall Street was good. It was a false economy. I've been researching a lot of stats, and 1 in 3 Americans have a debt in collection, and 69% of Americans have have no more than $1,000 in savings. 69%. It's like everybody was living to the bubble, and all of a sudden the bubble burst. It's amazing. What's it been like 6 weeks? Have we been going through for 6 weeks? It seems like 3 years economically.
Yeah, it does. It does. Yep.
And Wall Street's doing great.
and that boils down to the way you live your life. I mean, it's not just dollars and cents, it's lifestyle, it's quality of life. And you know, I mean, dollars, they're a piece of paper, okay? And the only thing you can really count on is the goods, you know, the food that you put on the table, the family that you have surrounding you, your health. Those are the things in life that count. You know, the economics are a means to get the quality of life. So it all starts with that, but you have to put everything in perspective. And as you say, sometimes it seems like a good economy, sometimes there's like a false narrative. It's very hard for us, you know, the working people of the world, of the country, to really know what goes on behind the scenes and to have an overall, the bigger picture, if you will, of you know, what controls the way we're living our lives. I mean, bread and circuses, it goes all the way back to the Roman Empire.
You know, Phil, just one thing too, and I got to do a huge shout out on behalf of all of us in Western New York. Feed More Western New York, which is a combination of the food bank and Meals on Wheels. The job they've done in this situation, talk about a domino effect. I think their food distribution need is up 40%. I jump in once in a while, deliver meals for them. They got 1,700 people that call to volunteer, okay? Their demand is up 40%. Look at the different organizations stepping up that are trying to feed the frontline workers through restaurants. It's like typical Western New York stepping up. It's just amazing. But, you know, food bank right now, Feed More is really hurting. They're low on food. They always need money. So if there's one organization that we really need to support right now, it's Feed More Western New York. Yep.
Yeah, we did a program. Dave Jixter was over there the other day, and we interviewed them. And you're right. In Western New York, in a situation like this, and I've been talking about this forever, because I was living on the West Coast, and I lived in Los Angeles, and I came to appreciate growing up here in Buffalo and living in Buffalo and the type of people and the sense of community that you have here.
For situations like this, I think we'll weather the storm better than big cities. And I think that Buffalo is going to grow because of it, because I think people who live in big cities on top of each other, like in New York and the Chicagos of the world, be like, oh boy, maybe it's time we rethink about our future and where we're really going to raise the kids. Because if this happens again, I don't want to be commuting on subways. I don't want to be on top of each other. So I think Buffalo, we can grow from this actually.
Yeah, it's you know, it's a matter of how we proceed, what the timing is going to be for this current situation. But I think everything is going to get back to normal, the new normal, as you say. At some point, people will look back on this and say, you know, that was a tough time, just like 9/11 was tough. But with memory fading, it will not dominate our lives the way it is today. We'll get through it. Everything passes. Everything goes on. And as long as you have your health and you have your family around you and your friends, hey, that's what counts in life.
Yeah, you know, it's funny. It's you know, new habits are being created now, I think. And I talked to a buddy of mine who works for a spirit company. Okay. Sells all this stuff. He said 80% of it is through liquor stores and 20% through on-premise places like restaurants and bars. I said, how's it going? He said, every week is like Christmas week. I go, what do you mean? Every week is the best sales week of the year. And people are cooking at home. People are actually sitting around the table and making meals. And, you know, it's just people are playing games and they're Zoom calling friends they haven't talked to in a long time. I think it's, you know, there's going to be some good that comes from this too.
Well, you know, you gotta grab the good. You know, in all this situation, you gotta look at the bright side. We're almost out of time. One more thing I wanted to touch on. You had mentioned earlier the workers from the restaurants. A lot of them are minimum wage workers. And they're sitting at home now, and they're on unemployment, and they have some extra benefits coming through because of the stimulus plan. And going forward, they're used to now getting a little bit extra, even more than the minimum wage. When things return to normal, the new normal, is it going to be tough to get people to come back to work? Is it going to be tough, to basically serve the community the way we used to? How's that going to work?
Well, I think we're going to roll into it because without a doubt, it's going to be a slow return to new normal. So maybe a 25%, 50% increments in, let's say, consumer spending businesses like retail and restaurants. So you won't have the staffing needs, okay? And then eventually unemployment, the $600 bump on unemployment by the federal government goes away July 31st. So now you're down to regular state unemployment. Maybe they'll extend it, but I think the slow rolling into building up the business as far as 25, 50, 75% capacity, that might roll right with staffing, supply and demand, let's say. I think it'll all work out, but then you're going to have, my prediction is 20% of the people in any industry that got laid off might not be coming back because companies have a lot of money to make up, and this Zoom call and this telecommuting, I think you're going to see more of it. You're going to see companies with smaller office spaces. Look at Mayor Brown. He made an announcement the other day. He's going to recommend that employees keep working out of the house through the end of the year. He said things are going so well, everything's being kept up with. Commercial real estate might take a hit because of this now, but it's Darwinism. It's actually a very interesting time if you're a marketing guy or a business economics guy, because there's so much unraveling and so much new. There'll be new businesses and industries that come from this.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
And we'll lose them.
Yeah, when things change, some things go out and some things come in. I mean, there's always new opportunities, and that's what we've been saying. You, instead of going for the doom and gloom, look for the positive in any situation. And, if you go in that route, if you go in that direction, you tend to be the winner, not the loser. And that's, you maximize your own good opportunity, your own good result. And that's all I can say to everybody out there. If you look within yourself and you look to the optimism, not to the doom and gloom, do a little reflection. This is a good time to do reflection because we have the time.
I agree, Phil, and I think it's a mental game at this point. And whether you're successful coming out of this or not depends on how you approach it mentally. If you think positive, you'll be okay. If you're going to keep your head in the sand and hope for the best, you're at risk.
Well, Drew Cerza, the Wingfest, I hope, after 19 years, I hope we can go on with it. I know that it's a job for you, and to a degree it might be a headache, but I'm hoping you can do it. I'm hoping that it goes ahead.
I'm kind of unemployed too. I'm one of the unemployed right now, because I don't know what's going to happen.
Well, let's hope for the best. We're out of time now for this big picture. I want to thank Drew for being my guest. Always a pleasure, Drew, to have the conversation. We'll get you back again, and we'll talk about the Wingfest and all this other stuff. There's a lot to talk about. Thanks again for watching The Big Picture, and thanks for watching WBBZ-TV. We always appreciate it. We'll see you next time on The Big Picture.